The thing about working communications on a frontier outpost is that you hear everything. Every argument, every confession, every drunken declaration of love or rage or existential despair. After 2 years on Delta 9, I'd learned to tune most of it out, to treat the constant stream of translated dialogue as background noise no more meaningful than the hum of the life support systems. Tonight, though, the noise was harder to ignore. The communal bar was packed, voices raised in half a dozen languages while the translation algorithms struggled to keep up. I just finished a 14-hour shift fixing those same algorithms after a solar flare had scrambled half the station's systems, and I was too tired to go straight back to my quarters to stare at the walls. So I sat at the bar, nursing something that claimed to be whiskey but tasted like regret and recycled water, and tried to become invisible. A difficult task when you're one of only 30 humans on a station that housed 300 assorted beings from across known space. Kavek, someone slapped my back hard enough to make me spill my drink. Petrov, one of the contractors working on the new docking bay. Join us. We're complaining about our love lives. It's therapeutic. I'm good here. Come on. Misery loves company. He was already pulling me toward a table where 5 other humans sat in various states of intoxication. I went because refusing would take more energy than complying. They were indeed complaining about relationships, partners back home who didn't understand the isolation of frontier work, long-distance communication delays that turned conversations into months-long exercises in frustration, the impossible choice between career and connection. "What about you, Kavek?" Martinez asked, her eyes slightly unfocused. "You never talk about anyone. Got someone waiting for you back on Earth?" "Nope. Mars, Luna, one of the colony worlds." "Nowhere." I took another sip of the not whiskey. "I'm single and planning to stay that way. No complications, no drama, just me and my work." I said it louder than intended, my voice carrying over a temporary lull in the bar's ambient noise. Several heads turned, including 2 that made my brain stutter mid-thought. They were Caliph. I'd seen members of their species around the station, elegant beings with luminous skin that shifted through subtle color gradients and those distinctive ears that swept back from their heads in graceful curves. But I'd never seen any up close, and I'd certainly never had 2 of them staring at me with expressions of sudden, intense interest. They were clearly sisters, nearly identical in height and build, their features mirror images with only subtle variations. One had skin that tended toward cooler tones, blues and silvers, while the other's coloring warmed toward golds and ambers. Both wore form-fitting attire that seemed to be made of light itself, and both had begun moving toward our table with unmistakable purpose. I said intelligently. They reached the table and stood on either side of my chair, looking down at me with expressions I couldn't read. Up close, they were even more striking, sharp cheekbones, eyes that held colors I didn't have names for, and those ears that twitched slightly as if tracking sounds beyond human hearing. "You declared yourself single," the blue-toned one said. Her voice had a melodic quality, each word precisely enunciated. Yes, I mean I am single. That's a factual statement about my relationship status." Why was I babbling? "That's no longer accurate," the gold-toned one said. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch warm even through my shirt. "We claim you." The table went silent. Petrov made a sound like a suppressed laugh. Martinez's eyes went wide. "I'm sorry, what?" "We've been observing you," Blue said, taking the seat to my left while Gold claimed the right. "You're compatible, and now you've declared availability, so we claim you. This is a joke, right? Some kind of welcome wagon thing for humans." I looked around for cameras, for the inevitable revelation that I was being pranked. "Caliph don't joke about bonding claims," a voice said from behind the bar. Throck, the Zentari bartender, looked amused in a way that involved too many teeth. "You just got yourself claimed human. Congratulations or condolences, depending on your perspective." "I didn't, this wasn't, I was just making a comment." I turned to the sisters who were watching me with expressions of calm certainty. You can't just claim people. We can, Gold said. We did. You declared yourself available in a public space. Under Calith custom, that permits interested parties to stake a claim. But I didn't know that. Ignorance of custom doesn't invalidate the declaration, Blue added. She had produced a small device from somewhere and was tapping at it with elegant fingers. I'm registering the claim now with the station's legal database. For the record, I'm Lissa, and this is my sister Naira. James, I said weakly. James Kovac, and I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Naira said. Her hand was still on my shoulder, and I was acutely aware of how warm it was, how her touch sent strange tingles across my skin. We've been very clear. I haven't agreed to anything. You declared availability. That's agreement enough to initiate a bond. Lissa finished whatever she was doing with her device and smiled at me. It was a beautiful smile. Terrifying but beautiful. Don't worry, we'll teach you the rest of the customs as we proceed. Proceed with what exactly? Bonding, they said in unison, which was somehow more unsettling than if they'd said it separately. I tried to stand, but Naira's hand on my shoulder was surprisingly firm. Not painful, not forceful, just immovable, like trying to push against gravity. I need to go, I said. Early shift tomorrow, thanks for the claim. But I really need to. We'll accompany you, Lissa said, standing smoothly. It's important we begin integration protocols immediately. Integration protocols. Learning your routines, your preferences, your boundaries. Naira stood as well, and suddenly I was flanked by two alien women who apparently thought they owned me now. Standard bonding procedure. My colleagues watched with expressions ranging from amusement to envy, as I was essentially escorted out of the bar by my new captors, partners. I didn't even know what to call them. The walk back to my quarters was surreal. Lissa and Naira walked on either side of me, close enough that their arms occasionally brushed mine, chatting with each other in their own language, a melodic sound full of tones that my translator implant couldn't quite capture. Occasionally, one of them would ask me a question. Do you prefer cooler or warmer temperatures in your living space? What time do you typically wake? Are you allergic to any common foods? I answered automatically, too overwhelmed to think of refusing. When we reached my door, I turned to face them, trying to muster some kind of authority. Look, this has been weird and interesting, but I live alone. So thank you for walking me home, and maybe we can sort this out with station administration tomorrow. I palmed the door open, intending to slip inside and lock it behind me. But they moved with synchronized precision, flowing past me into my quarters before I could react. Hey, you can't just. Your space is smaller than expected, Lissa observed, looking around my cramped quarters with analytical interest. We'll need to request an upgrade to accommodate 3. Accommodate 3. My voice came out higher than intended. Nobody's accommodating 3. This is my space. For now, Naira agreed. She'd found my small kitchenette and was examining the contents of my refrigerator with disappointment. Your nutrition is inadequate. We'll need to supplement your diet. Will you please listen to me? I moved to stand in front of them, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. This is a misunderstanding. I made a joke, a human joke. I wasn't declaring anything in your cultural sense. I just meant I'm not dating anyone, and I'm fine with that status. They looked at each other, something passing between them that I couldn't interpret. Then Lissa spoke, her voice gentle but firm. We understand human customs differ from Calith customs. We've studied your species extensively in preparation for this moment. Preparation? How long have you been planning this? 3 weeks, Naira said. Since we first saw you in the commissary, arguing with the food synthesizer about proper coffee temperature. You were very passionate. It was endearing. You've been watching me for 3 weeks. Observing, Lissa corrected. To determine compatibility. We don't claim randomly, James. We've studied your routines, your work, your interactions with others. We know you're intelligent, dedicated, kind to subordinates, patient with frustrating technology, and deeply lonely despite your protestations otherwise. The accuracy of that assessment hit harder than I wanted to admit. That doesn't give you the right to just claim me like I'm property. You're not property, Naira said, and for the first time there was emotion in her voice, something like offense. You're a potential bondmate. There's nothing more valuable in Caliph culture. We honor you by claiming you. I don't feel honored, I feel kidnapped. Would you prefer we leave? Lissa asked. But the way she said it, the tone, suggested she was asking a genuine question and would actually respect the answer. I looked at them, really looked. They were standing in my quarters, these two impossible beings with luminous skin and expressive ears, having turned my entire life sideways with a declaration I didn't understand. By all rights, I should call station security, file a complaint, demand they leave. But they weren't threatening me. They weren't forcing anything physical. They were just present, insistent, certain in a way I'd never been certain about anything. If I say leave, will you actually go? Yes, they said together. Then Naira added, but we'll return tomorrow to continue the bonding process. Of course you will. I rubbed my face, exhaustion making my thoughts fuzzy. Look, can we just pause? I need to sleep. I need to think. Can you give me one night to process whatever this is? Again, that look between them, that silent communication. Then Lissa nodded. We can give you tonight, but tomorrow we continue. The claim is registered, James. Walking away from it requires formal arbitration. And I promise you, by the time we're done helping you understand what this means, you won't want to walk away. That's a terrifying level of confidence. Well-founded confidence, Naira corrected. She moved toward the door and Lissa followed. At the threshold, they both turned back. Sleep well, James Kavak. Tomorrow, your real education begins. They left and I stood in my suddenly very empty quarters, staring at the closed door and trying to figure out what the hell had just happened to my life. My communicator chirped. A message from Petrov. Dude, what just happened? Did you just get alien married? I didn't answer. Instead, I collapsed onto my bed, still fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. I'm single, I muttered to the empty room. I said I'm single. Somewhere in the station, I imagined two Caliph sisters preparing for tomorrow, making plans, discussing integration protocols for their new claimed human. I was so screwed. I woke to the sound of voices in my quarters. Specifically, two voices having a quiet conversation in Caliph, the melodic tones rising and falling in patterns that my half-asleep brain tried and failed to parse. I opened my eyes to find Lissa and Naira sitting in the two chairs I normally used for piling clean laundry, positioned on either side of my bed like guards, or attendants, or something equally unsettling. You're in my quarters, I said, my voice rough with sleep. How did you get in? Your door isn't very secure, Naira said cheerfully. We'll need to upgrade that. Safety is important. You broke into my quarters. We entered your quarters, Lissa corrected. Breaking implies damage. We were very careful. She held up a cup of something that smelled significantly better than station coffee. We brought breakfast. Your nutritional intake yesterday was concerning. I sat up slowly, trying to organize my thoughts while still half asleep and confronted by two alien women who'd apparently decided I belonged to them. We need to talk about boundaries. Agreed, Naira said. That's part of integration protocols. Tell us your boundaries and we'll work within them. Breaking into my quarters crosses a boundary. Noted. We'll request access codes today. Lissa offered the cup again. This is Kalish. It has similar properties to your coffee but with better nutritional balance. Try it. Against my better judgment, I took the cup. The liquid inside was deep amber, almost glowing, and the taste when I sipped was like coffee and honey and something else I couldn't identify. It was annoyingly delicious. You like it, Naira observed. Your ears don't express emotion like ours, but your pupils dilated slightly. Pleasure response. Have you been studying human physiology? Extensively, Lissa confirmed. We've accessed every database available on human biological and psychological characteristics. We needed to understand you before claiming you. That's thorough. I took another sip of the Kalish, and deeply weird. Weird, Naira repeated, testing the word. Meaning strange, unusual. We understand why you think so. Human bonding customs are very different from ours. Yeah, humans typically date first, get to know each other gradually. There's usually consent involved at multiple stages. We're not opposed to gradual knowing, Lissa said. That's what integration protocols are for. And as for consent, you gave it when you declared availability. I didn't know I was declaring anything. Ignorance doesn't invalidate the declaration. Yeah, you said that. I set the cup down on my bedside table. Okay, explain to me in detail what this claiming thing actually means. Because from my perspective, this looks a lot like kidnapping. They exchanged one of those looks again, communicating silently in ways I envied and resented in equal measure. Then Lissa spoke, her tone shifting to something more formal, almost like a lecture. Kalith bonding is permanent. When we claim a mate, it's a lifetime commitment. We don't have divorce or separation. The bond is considered sacred, inviolable. That's a lot of pressure for something that started with me making a joke. Which is why the claiming process has stages, Naira continued. Right now, we're in the integration stage. We learn you, you learn us. We determine if the compatibility we observed is genuine. This stage typically lasts 2 to 3 months. And if we determine we're not compatible, then the claim is dissolved and we part with honor. Lissa's ears droop slightly, though we're confident that won't be necessary. Why are you so confident? Because we've been searching for years, Naira said quietly. Lissa and I are twin bonded. We share partners. It's common among Kalith siblings, but it makes finding compatible mates more difficult. We need someone who complements both of us, who can balance Lissa's analytical nature and my intuitive approach. And you think I'm that person based on watching me argue with a food synthesizer? Based on 3 weeks of careful observation, Lissa corrected. We've seen you work under pressure, interact with difficult colleagues, show kindness to younger staff members, persist through frustrating problems. We've seen you eat alone in corners and pretend you prefer it. We've seen you, James. Not the surface you show others, but who you actually are. The words hit uncomfortably close to truth. I looked away, focusing on the cup of Kalish. So what happens now, during this integration stage? We spend time together. We learn your routines, your preferences, your needs. You learn ours. We begin building the foundation of a bond. Naira stood and moved to my small closet, examining the contents with critical interest. Your wardrobe is inadequate. We'll need to supplement it. My wardrobe is fine. It's 40% identical gray shirts, Lissa observed. That's not fine. That's depression cosplaying as minimalism. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it because she wasn't entirely wrong. I like gray. You like not thinking about what to wear, Naira corrected. There's a difference. We'll help you expand your options. I don't need help with my clothing. Consider it integration, Lissa said. We're learning what you find comfortable. You're learning that we care about your presentation because it reflects on us as you're claimed. I haven't agreed to be claimed. You will, Naira said with maddening confidence. This is bonding, Naira corrected. Come, shower and dress. We'll wait outside if that boundary is important to you. The shower boundary is extremely important to me. Noted. They both moved to the door, but Lissa paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, we understand this is overwhelming. We're not trying to overwhelm you. We're trying to show you what a bond with us would look like. Give us these 3 weeks, James. Let us prove we're right about the compatibility. And if you're wrong, then we'll formally dissolve the claim and apologize for the disruption to your life. Her expression was sincere, her ears angled forward, and what I was learning meant honesty. But we're not wrong. They left, and I sat on my bed surrounded by the evidence of their intrusion, the cup of delicious Kalish, the faint scent of whatever made their skin luminous, the certain knowledge that my life had just become exponentially more complicated. I showered and dressed in one of my apparently depressing gray shirts, then emerged to find them waiting in the corridor. They fell into step on either side of me, and the walk to the communications center became a parade of stares and whispered conversations. "Everyone's looking at us," I muttered. "Everyone's looking at you," Naira corrected. "Being claimed by twin-bonded Caliph is rare. You're suddenly much more interesting than you were yesterday." I liked being uninteresting. "You didn't," Lissa said quietly. "You just convinced yourself it was safer." I didn't have an answer to that, mainly because she was right again, and I was starting to hate how perceptive they were. The communications center was my refuge. Banks of equipment, translation algorithms displayed on multiple screens, the comfortable chaos of managing information flow for an entire station. My supervisor Chen looked up as I entered with my twin shadows and grinned. "Kavak, heard you got claimed last night. Congratulations." "It's a misunderstanding. A registered misunderstanding," Lissa said pleasantly. "We're in integration protocols." "Well, welcome to communications." Chen gestured at the equipment. "Try not to break anything. We've got enough problems with the solar flare damage." Lissa and Naira observed my work with focused attention that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. They asked intelligent questions about the translation algorithms, about information routing, about the complexities of managing communication across species with incompatible languages and cultural contexts. "This is fascinating," Naira said after I'd explained a particularly tricky routing problem. "You're essentially building bridges between minds that would otherwise never connect." That's actually a nice way to think about it. I'd never described my job that way, but she was right. Most people just see it as technical work. "Most people don't look beneath surfaces," Lissa observed. "We do. It's how we found you." During a lunch break I hadn't planned to take, they brought me food from the station's Caliph quarter. Complex dishes that tasted like music and felt like colors I'd never seen before. Other staff members watched with barely concealed envy. "You're making me conspicuous," I complained. "You were always conspicuous," Naira said. "You just hid it well." As the shift wore on, I found myself explaining more than necessary, showing them aspects of my work that went beyond their questions. They listened with genuine interest, and something in my chest loosened slightly at being truly seen in a context I cared about. Maybe, I thought, this wouldn't be completely terrible. Then the end of shift came, and they followed me back to my quarters, and I realized this was going to be my life for the foreseeable future. Two determined alien women who decided I was theirs, and refused to entertain the possibility of being wrong. "Tomorrow," Lissa said at my door, "we'll introduce you to Caliph cultural practices. You need to understand what you're being integrated into." "Tomorrow," Naira agreed. "Sleep well, James Kavak. You're doing better than you think." They left, and I entered my quarters to find they'd left more of that Kalish, and a data pad loaded with information about Caliph bonding customs. I sat down to read, telling myself it was just research, just information. But somewhere in the back of my mind, a traitorous thought whispered, maybe they weren't completely wrong about the compatibility thing. I ignored that thought and kept reading. By the end of the first week, Lissa and Naira had become fixtures in my life in ways I couldn't quite articulate or resist. They'd managed to get quarters adjacent to mine. How, I didn't ask, and had established routines that intersected with mine at every point. Morning Kalish delivered exactly when I woke. Walks to work flanked by their presence. Lunch brought from kitchens I didn't know existed. Evening debriefings about the day where they'd ask questions that made me think about my own life in new ways. "Do you enjoy your work?" Lissa asked one evening as we sat in my quarters, which had somehow accumulated their belongings alongside mine. "Yes, mostly. It's satisfying when the systems work properly. But not fulfilling," Naira observed. She was preparing something that smelled amazing in my kitchenette, which she'd criticized extensively before supplementing with equipment from the Caliph quarter. You're competent at your work, but it doesn't feed your soul. I don't think about work in terms of soul feeding. That's the problem, Lissa said. Humans compartmentalize too much. Work here, soul there, never integrating. Caliph don't separate our lives like that. Everything is part of the whole. Must be nice being so integrated. It can be, Naira said, bringing over 3 plates of whatever she'd been cooking. When you have people to integrate with. Alone, it's just fragmentation with prettier words. I took a bite of the food, some kind of grain combined with vegetables that shifted colors on my tongue and tasted like they'd been kissed by stars. This is incredible. Your reaction to good food is very expressive, Lissa observed. Your pupils dilate, your breathing deepens, you make small sounds of pleasure. It's endearing. You're cataloging my reactions to food. We're cataloging your reactions to everything, Naira said. That's integration. Learning what brings you joy so we can provide more of it. That's actually kind of sweet. I paused, in a deeply invasive way. All intimacy is invasive, Lissa said. That's the point. Letting someone past your boundaries into your private spaces. You've been alone so long you've forgotten what that feels like. I've dated. You've engaged in superficial interactions that protected you from genuine connection, Naira corrected. We've read the messages in your communicator from past partners. You always kept them at distance. You read my messages. During integration, everything is shared. Lissa's tone suggested this should be obvious. We need to understand your patterns, your history. How else can we know what you need? By asking. People rarely know what they need, Naira said. They know what they think they want, which is different. You think you want solitude and safety. You need connection and challenge. You're very certain about what I need. We are, they said in unison, which was still unnerving even after a week. The conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring through the station. My communicator lit up with an emergency alert, medical crisis in the docking bay. Contamination event involving a Caliph diplomatic vessel. Lissa and Naira were on their feet instantly, their skin flaring with colors I'd learned meant alarm and determination. We have to go, our people need help. I'm coming with you. You're not medical personnel, Lissa said. No, but I can coordinate communication between your medical teams and station staff. That's my job. I was already grabbing equipment. Let's go. We ran through corridors that had never felt so long, arriving at the medical bay to find controlled chaos. 6 Caliph from the diplomatic vessel, all showing signs of exposure to something toxic. The station's medical staff was overwhelmed, trying to treat physiology they didn't fully understand. What do you need? I asked the head physician, a gruff human named Rodriguez. I need to know what the hell they were exposed to and how to counteract it. But their medical officer is unconscious, and nobody else speaks enough standard to explain. I can translate, Lissa said, already moving toward the patients. Naira, you handle triage. I'll coordinate with station medical. They moved with synchronized precision, their earlier calmness transformed into focused efficiency. Naira assessed each patient with quick, competent touches, directing station staff with clear instructions. Lissa worked with Rodriguez, translating Caliph physiology into terms human medicine could understand. I became the bridge between them all, using my communications training to coordinate the chaos. Routing information, clarifying instructions, ensuring everyone understood what was needed. It was high-stakes translation, the kind where mistakes could cost lives. We worked for hours. The contamination had been a malfunctioning shipboard system that released a compound toxic to Caliph respiratory systems. Treatment required specific compounds and procedures that the station didn't normally stock, necessitating rapid synthesizing based on Lissa's knowledge and Rodriguez's improvisation. When the last patient stabilized, the bay fell into exhausted silence. Lissa and Naira stood together, their skin flickering with colors that meant relief and fatigue, their ears drooping slightly. You saved them, Rodriguez said, looking at the sisters with newfound respect. Without you two, we'd have lost at least half. It was a team effort, Lissa said, but she looked at me when she said it, and her expression held something I couldn't quite name. Back in my quarters hours later, we collapsed in various states of exhaustion. Naira sprawled on my couch. Lissa sat on the floor with her back against my bed, and I occupied the single chair that hadn't been absorbed into their colonization of my space. That was intense, I said inadequately. Medical emergencies usually are, Naira agreed. Her skin was slowly returning to normal colors, the alarm red fading to her usual gold tones. But we managed well, the three of us. We did. I looked at them, really looked at them, seeing past the alien features to the competent, compassionate beings underneath. You were incredible, both of you. The way you worked together, how you knew what the other needed without speaking. That's twin bonding, Lissa explained. We've been connected since birth. Our thoughts, our emotions, our instincts, they're shared. It's why we need a partner who can understand that dynamic and not feel excluded by it. Is that why you claimed me? Because you think I won't feel excluded? We claimed you because during our 3 weeks of observation, we never saw you try to come between connected people, Naira said. You facilitate connections. You build bridges. That's what you do professionally, but it's also who you are fundamentally. You saw all that from watching me fix translation algorithms. We saw it in everything. Lissa pulled herself up to sit beside me. The way you help younger staff without making them feel inadequate. How you mediate disputes without taking sides. The patience you show with frustrated people who don't understand your work. You're a connector, James. You just never had anyone to connect with. The words settled over me, uncomfortable in their accuracy. I'd spent years convincing myself I preferred solitude, that independence was strength. But watching Lissa and Naira work together, seeing the power of genuine connection, something in me ached with recognition of what I'd been missing. I don't know if I can be what you need, I admitted quietly. I don't know how to be part of a bonded triad. I barely know how to be in a relationship. You learn, Naira said, like everything else, and we help you. That's what integration is for. We have 8 more weeks in the integration stage, Lissa added. 8 weeks to teach you our customs, to learn your needs, to build the foundation of what could be a permanent bond. No pressure to decide now. Just stay open to the possibility. The possibility of what? That maybe we're right, Naira said. That maybe you're exactly who we've been searching for. That maybe being claimed by 2 stubborn Caliph sisters is the best thing that could have happened to you. I laughed despite myself. That's a hell of a claim. We're very good at claiming, Lissa said with a small smile. It's kind of our thing. We sat in comfortable silence, exhaustion making words unnecessary. Outside my viewport, ships came and went, people moving through their lives with purpose and connection. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I could be one of them. Maybe I could stop running from connection and actually build something real. Okay, I said finally, 8 more weeks. Let's see if you're as right as you think you are. We are, they said together. Of course you are. I stood, stretching muscles sore from tension and adrenaline. But for now, I need sleep. And you two need to go to your own quarters because boundaries are still a thing. They stood as well, moving toward the door. But at the threshold, Naira turned back. Thank you for today, for coming with us, for helping our people. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. I meant it. People were hurt. That's enough reason. See, Lissa said to her sister. I told you he was perfect. I'm not perfect. Perfect for us, Naira clarified. There's a difference. They left, and I prepared for bed in quarters that felt less empty than they had a week ago. On my communicator, there was a message from Rodriguez thanking me for the coordination work, another from Chen asking if I was okay, and one from Petrov that just said, Dude, you're definitely alien married now. I smiled despite myself and sent back, Not yet, but maybe eventually. Then I turned off the lights and fell asleep thinking about twin-bonded sisters and the unexpected ways life could change when you stopped running from it. 3 weeks into the integration stage, I stopped calling it captivity and started calling it something else. Courtship, maybe. Or negotiation. Or that thing where two people, three people, figured out if they fit together in all the ways that mattered. The station had adjusted to the sight of James Kovac flanked by twin Caliph sisters. Colleagues teased less and asked more genuine questions. Other Caliph treated me with respect I hadn't earned, as if being claimed by Lissa and Naira conferred automatic status. I'd learned to read the colors in their skin, the angles of their ears, the subtle body language that conveyed emotions human faces couldn't quite match. And somewhere along the way, I'd stopped flinching when they entered my personal space, stopped feeling invaded when they learned new things about me, stopped resenting the way they disrupted my careful solitude. "You're smiling more," Naira observed one morning as we walked to the communications center. "Your facial muscles are less tense. It's a good look on you." "I smile a normal amount." "You smile now a normal amount," Lissa corrected. "Before, you smiled professionally but not genuinely. There's a difference in the muscle engagement around your eyes. You're cataloging my smile muscles now." "We catalog everything about you," they said together, which I'd stopped finding creepy and started finding endearing. But that evening, I made a decision that had been forming for days. I requested a formal meeting with the station's Caliph liaison, an older woman named Tavara who handled cultural mediation. Lissa and Naira attended, their skin flickering with colors I'd learned meant anxiety and uncertainty. We sat in Tavara's office, which smelled like the flowers that grew in the Caliph quarter and felt like being wrapped in warm sunlight. Tavara looked at me with eyes that had seen centuries of bonds form and dissolve. "You requested this meeting, James Kovac. Speak your purpose." I looked at Lissa and Naira, at the careful way they were controlling their expressions, at the ears that drooped just slightly despite their attempts at confidence. "When I said I was single 3 weeks ago, it was a joke. A human joke about not wanting relationship complications. I didn't intend to make any kind of declaration in Caliph custom, and I certainly didn't expect to be claimed by twin-bonded sisters who'd apparently been stalking me." Tavara's ears twitched with amusement. "This is known, and you wish to dissolve the claim." Lissa's skin flashed with something like pain, quickly controlled. Naira's ears flattened completely before she forced them back to neutral. They were trying so hard to maintain composure, to accept my choice with dignity, and something in my chest ached at causing them distress. "No," I said, and watched their skin flare with brilliant colors, relief, joy, hope. "I want to make a proper declaration, not as a joke this time, not by accident, a real one." Tavara's expression shifted to pleased surprise. "You wish to accept the claim. I wish to make my own claim." I turned to face Lissa and Naira fully. "For 3 weeks, you've been teaching me about Caliph bonding, about integration and compatibility and what it means to be truly connected to someone. You've been patient with my ignorance, respectful of my boundaries even while pushing them, and consistently correct about things I wasn't ready to admit. You were right about me being lonely, right about me building walls, right about me needing connection even though I'd convinced myself I preferred isolation." "James," Lissa started, but I held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've been claimed by 2 brilliant, stubborn, occasionally invasive women who decided I was worth the effort of pursuing, who saw past the gray shirts and the careful distance and the professional competence to whoever I actually am underneath, who cooked me food and brought me kalish and sat with me during crises and made me laugh when I didn't think I wanted to, who worked together with the kind of synchronization I'd never seen and included me in it like I belonged there." I reached for both their hands. "So yeah, I'm making my own claim now. Not because you claimed me first, but because somewhere between being kidnapped and being known, I realized I don't want you to let me go." The colors in their skin were incandescent, emotions too complex for human words but clear enough in the way they looked at me, like I was everything they'd been searching for and more than they'd hoped to find. "You're certain?" Naira asked, her voice trembling slightly. "This is permanent, James. Caliph bonds don't break." "I'm certain, terrified but certain." Terrified is normal, Lissa said. Bonding is terrifying. You're letting someone see every part of you, trusting them not to use that knowledge as weapon. It requires courage. Good thing I've had 3 weeks of practice being vulnerable with you too. I looked at Tevara. So how do we do this properly? What's the official process? Tevara smiled, her ears lifting with approval. We formalize the bond. There will be a ceremony, declarations in 3 languages, ritual exchanges. And you must publicly state your choice, free from coercion. Whenever you're ready, though I suggest sooner rather than later. The uncertainty is clearly affecting your claimed partners. I looked at Lissa and Naira, at the way they were barely containing their emotions. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow, they echoed, and their smiles could have powered the entire station. The ceremony was smaller than I expected. Close friends, a few colleagues, the Caliph diplomatic contingent that was still grateful for our help during the medical crisis. Tevara presided, her voice carrying the weight of tradition as she explained the significance of bonding in Caliph culture. A bond is not ownership, she said. It is partnership. It is choosing every day to see another person completely and love them anyway. To share burdens and joys, to build something larger than individual existence. To be known and to know in return. There were ritual exchanges, objects that held significance, words in Caliph that I'd practiced until my pronunciation was passable, responses from Lissa and Naira that made my translator implant struggle with the emotional complexity. Then came the public declaration. James Kovac, Tevara said, you have been claimed by Lissa and Naira, twin-bonded daughters of Kale. Do you accept this claim freely without coercion? I do. And do you make your own claim, choosing them as bondmates? I do, both of them, completely, even though they stalked me and broke into my quarters and refused to take no for an answer. Even though they're stubborn and occasionally terrifying and way too confident about being right. It's not confidence if we're consistently correct, Naira murmured, earning laughs from the assembled witnesses. Even though they're usually right, I amended. I choose them, because they saw me when I was invisible, because they made me laugh and fed me and sat with me during long shifts and medical crises, because they showed me what real connection looks like, and I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to be part of it. The colors in their skin were like dawn breaking, like stars being born, like every beautiful thing I'd ever seen in space compressed into 2 beings who decided I was worth claiming. Then by the authority granted to me, Tevara said, I recognize this bond as formed and permanent. May you know joy in each other, strength in unity, and peace in your shared future. The ceremony concluded with ritual touches, forehead to forehead in the Caliph manner, hands clasped in the human style, ears touching in a gesture that was specific to intimate bonds. Witnesses offered congratulations and blessings, many in languages I didn't know but understood through tone and context. Afterward, we moved to larger quarters that station administration had somehow prepared in advance, a space designed for triads, with enough room for 3 people to live without constantly tripping over each other. Our belongings were already there, mixed together in ways that made it impossible to tell what had been mine and what had been theirs. They were very confident about the outcome, I observed, looking at the living space that already felt like home. We may have informed administration that the bond would be formalized, Lissa admitted. It seemed efficient to prepare in advance. Of course you did. I pulled them both close, still getting used to the mechanics of hugging 2 people simultaneously. Thank you for not giving up on me, for being stubborn and certain even when I was scared and resistant. Thank you for letting yourself be claimed, Naira said, for trusting us enough to lower your walls. Thank you for building something worth lowering walls for. We stood there, 3 beings from different worlds who'd found each other through accident and persistence, and I felt something settle in my chest, a sense of rightness, of belonging, of home that had nothing to do with location and everything to do with the people who chose to stay. Later, after messages to family that ranged from supportive to baffled, After conversations with friends who wanted to understand this strange new arrangement, after all the logistics and adjustments and negotiations that came with combining 3 lives into one, we sat together in our shared quarters and just existed in each other's presence. I called my parents, I said, told them I'd bonded with twin Caliph sisters. My mother asked if I was being held against my will. What did you tell her? Lissa asked. That I was for about 3 days. And then I decided I wanted to stay. Accurate summary, Naira said. Though technically we weren't holding you, we were persistently present. Aggressively present. Committedly present, Lissa corrected. I laughed, the sound easier and more genuine than it had been in years. Note to self, never make jokes in alien bars. Too late, they said together. You're ours now. And somehow, impossibly, that was exactly right. Outside our viewport, ships moved through space carrying people to their various destinations. Inside, 3 beings who'd found each other against all probability built something that looked like forever. Hey, I said, I love you. Both of you. Just wanted to say it while I was awake, and it definitely counted. Their skin flared with colors I'd learned meant joy and love and coming home, and their ears lifted in perfect synchronization. We know, Naira said. We've known since the first day, Lissa added. You just needed time to catch up. Terrifying confidence. Well-founded confidence, they corrected together, and they were right. They were always right. I was finally okay with